Hi, my name is Jessica, and I'm a self development coach, career coach, and executive coach. And I'm so excited to share a soulful conversation.
Sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here.
Pearl Chiarenza back with another episode of Soulful Self-Care Conversations. If you've been following us for a while and maybe you were gone for a little bit, you're like, I thought it was Conversations with Pearl. It still is. We're just calling it something a little different, concentrating more on self-care and really deep down in your soul what you're doing for yourself. Because self-care isn't selfish. You should be putting yourself first. And the cliche of overpouring your cup is very true because if you're not overflowing your own cup, you cannot show up for others. And that's what our conversations are going to be about on the show. We're going to have soulful conversation. We are not scripted. We have nothing set apart. So wherever we go with the flow, we go. So grab a cup of tea, put your feet up if you are sitting at home. If you're driving, no worries because you can listen to us later and all the show notes will be available. So if you have to click a link, want to go back and look at something we've talked about, you'll be able to do that. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe below because we want to follow you just like you follow us. So again, so glad you are here. And my special guest today is Jessica Manca. She is an expert at helping her clients shift from feeling like an imposter to feeling empowered. As an executive career and personal development coach, speaker, and author, Jessica has over 25 years of experience working with global organizations such as Deloitte and Amazon. So I'm excited to have this conversation. We had a great conversation when we first met. That's just so everybody knows listening. I always do a pre-interview with my guests because I want to make sure they're the right fit for everybody. And Jessica definitely is a great fit for us today. So welcome to the show, Jessica.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pearl. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited you're here too. This has been a little while since we last talked. So I'm so excited to circle back around and finally record our episode together. And so for those that are listening, we only have one question that we do first. It's always so usually my guests by now are known that I'm doing this question because they're like you, they go and listen and follow the show. So we're going to get started right away. And that is the question of going back to when Jessica was a little girl. So when you were a little girl, Jessica, and you were thinking about the things you want to do when you were going to grow up, I'd like to know and share with the audience what was that you thought, I want to do this when I become that adult that we are today. And how does it relate to what you're doing today? So I'll share first because I always like to lead by example. And so if you listen before, you're going to hear me repeat it again, but it's always good to hear it again. And that is growing up, I wanted to be a teacher. I thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher where I went to high school at Warsaw High School over in West Palm Beach area. We had a great program. I don't know that they do these programs today, but basically I got to leave the school. I think it was my senior year of high school. I would leave the school and I would go to the local elementary school that fed into our high school. And I would be a teacher's aide. And pretty much she'd always set up so I could teach one of those lessons during the class. And I just loved that. That was like what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, back then, and nothing against my guidance counselors, but I didn't have that guidance of going, this is the next path to going off to college. I didn't have that. My parents, they were not vested in understanding that part of the process because it's not something that was in their world. So I went to school of hard knocks. I didn't get to go be that elementary school teacher. However, today, if I correlate what I'm doing today, I laugh with my girlfriend and I say, I am teaching. I just got them when they're in their adulthood now, is what I say. So I'm teaching the women, how to overcome people pleasing because that's something that's part of my story. It started in third grade. I thought I had to show up for everybody because my dad did 3 tours in Vietnam. So my mom needed help with my brother and sister. So that was me. And so I get to help and coach women to understand that, like we said at the beginning of the show, you have to overflow your cup so that you can show up for others. So that's my example for the listeners and for you, Jessica. So I'm going to hand off to you. Tell us about little girl Jessica and where she is today versus what she wanted to be growing up.
Awesome. I love that. Little girl Jessica, she was always about, gosh, she was such a tomboy and she was doing so many different things. And I think what she dreamed about was she also had thoughts about becoming a teacher. In third grade, my teacher shared with me, like it was the end of the year and we got new books that year. So she shared with me the teacher's edition of the book. And I was blown away because if you've ever back in the day when you had a teacher's edition of a book, it was spiral bound, and the textbook that the kids would see would be a lot smaller and it'd be inset to the spiral bound double A spread. And then all along the side was all of these notes and suggestions and activities and questions and learning. And it is a change of perspective as a kid to see that. But for me, it imprinted something in me about perspective. So I really wondered, what is it that I'm going to do with that kind of knowledge? Am I going to create something like that someday? Or am I going to work on something like that someday? And then I also always wanted to write a book. So books and perspective were always a part of my journey. And then you fast forward to growing up, and I grew up in a small town of 20,000 people. I always knew I wanted to go to a bigger city, maybe Chicago, maybe Cincinnati, Ohio. That was bigger, right? And I always wanted to think about what my work would be like if it could make a bigger impact. And lo and behold, throughout my career, starting out in the Midwest, I'm originally from Indianapolis. Starting out in the Midwest, I had these amazing opportunities to have this really diverse career. And it started with my journalism background in writing. It led to web design, which at the time before .com, I was really intrigued by the internet. I was really intrigued by what that would look like from taking my kind of print skills and applying them to web. So just on and on throughout my career, I stepped into or stepped up for these different roles that grew and stretched me. And so I can honestly say now I've had such a diverse career. I've worked in every department but finance, and I've learned from all of those experiences. And when I was working in tech, I ended up becoming a software developer, and I worked in consulting for 8 years. And that was a fantastic learning opportunity. You learn at light speed when you're in consulting because you have so many frequent engagements and there's so much learning, and you're right at the crux of what your companies and organizations are trying to achieve. But during that time, I was a high performer. I was always at the top of my class. And I wanted to go even higher because I had this instinct in me that there was something about what I was doing that, yeah, I'm really good at the PowerPoints and applying all those like publishing and desktop skills. I was really good at creating those 100-page PowerPoints. I was really good at analyzing the spreadsheets, but that just didn't feel like that's what I'm here to do. And so I kept having this like itching of, oh, I just feel like I have this capacity that's not being harnessed. And what is that capacity? So I did some soul searching. I worked really hard in that career. And I always wondered, like, why is it that we're all management consultants, but the thing that we have that takes us to the next level is a personal coach or is an executive coach? And so I was like, that is so interesting because it's not a consultant, right? It's a coach. And what is it about that? And so one day I went into my managing partner's office, and I just flat out had a really honest conversation with him for probably the first time. And I said, like, why is it we're doing all these solutions for our clients? What if we actually help them become better leaders to make better decisions on their own? And he's, yeah, we don't do that here. And it was so clear to me that was the writing on the wall that I needed to hear, to know that the something else in this capacity that I had and this urge and feeling that I was kind of intuitively knowing about myself, that something else couldn't happen here. And so that was the day that I started my path of changing careers from management consultant to do whatever it was after that. And I had no idea how to even start to do that process. So I hired a coach, right? Like walking the talk of what I was so excited about it in coaching. And working with that coach, we uncovered kind of the clues in my experience. And she asked me point blank, she's, what is it that kept you going during all those hard hours and all those long weeks? And I said, it was never the solution. It was always the people. And so we tapped into my skills around people and motivation and mentoring and coaching. And I'd even won a Coach of the Year award. It was all the clues and all the stars lined up. That was my path. And so I made a decision. I left that career, but I left it how I wanted to leave it. I left it kind of on my own terms. So I planned my succession. I think I probably gave like a ridiculous 2 months notice. I planned my succession. I had an awesome last couple months at that firm. And even on my last day, I like wrapped up a project I was really proud of. And somebody walked down the hall next to me and were like, hey, isn't today your last day? You should be out of here. I'd be so checked out if I were you. And I remember saying to him, like, well, that's just not how I want to do it. That's not who I am. And so I felt so liberated. And that's when I started my company, Managing Mind Spaces Coaching. And that's when I wrote my book, Finding Passion. And I created the book that was when you're at the career crossroads and you have so many options, you're capable of doing so many things. How do you make the decisions for yourself? How do you align the work that you want to do with who you want to be? And that's my journey. And that's what led me here.
That is so cool. And I like, there's so many things I like. First of all, I like how you took the leap of faith and went into counterpart and said, hey, what if, and they told you, we don't do that here. You're like, okay. So that was, like you said, the writing on the wall saying, this is not where I need to be. This is not where my passion is going to shine. It's not where I'm going to find, like your book says, find. It's not where you're going to find that passion and let it grow. Like you're finding it, but how do I water it? How do I like let it grow and become this beautiful thing that I want to be in my life as well. And so I think that's so great because so often we as individuals, as humans, we're afraid to take that leap of faith. We're afraid to go have those conversations. I was just coaching with a nonprofit I work with twice a month. I coach the women there, and we were talking about fear can hold you back so often. And what if fear had held you back to saying, I'm not going to go tell them this. I'm not going to ask them this. You might still be doing things that you don't enjoy doing, right? That you enjoyed it, but not that gave you that passion fulfillment. And so we talk about what's the worst that can happen. The worst that can happen is what happened to you is they said, we're not going to do it here. We don't do it here. So you said, okay, I'm going to go create my path. I'm going to start my path. This is my sign, wherever it comes from. It's here in front of me saying, this is not the path that I'm supposed to go. And then the other thing I'd hear is integrity, right? Like that coworker who walked past you said, I would have been so out of here. People do that all the time. It's one of the things, one of the young people that I was coaching just recently up and quit their job. And I said, where are you going tomorrow? And they're like, I don't have a job. I literally said, I don't know where we've missed the boat on education wise to help our young. And so if you're listening to me and you're like 20 to 30 years old, listen closely. I was like, we don't leave something and not have something planned, especially when we have littles that we're taking care of. You can't rely on that. I always get a job with no problem. We're in a different world today. That may not happen. Like you have to have a plan. Like when you create a plan. You said, my plan is, this is not where my passion's going to be. I want to plan my exit from here. So you started the plan and then you got a coach, right? You got somebody. And that's what I tell Ray, whether you get a coach or you get a mentor, grab onto that because that's going to help you. People often ask me, if you had to look back when you started your business, what would you have done? I would hire a coach. I'd have a coach. I just went out and did this all on my own. I started in the health and wellness field. The person that I was on my weight loss journey with had said, anytime you want to start your own practice or open up your own clinic, you can. When it came down to do it, because I was 51% of her business coming in the door, she didn't want to let me go. So she tried to stifle me and stop me. And so I had to come around that to do that. And then my pathway from health and wellness to more life coaching of what I'm doing is because so many of my clients as a health coach would be like, my friend doesn't need to lose weight, but you're so great about helping me the mindset piece about why I chose to eat this or chose to do that is a lot to do with what's going on in between my ears right now. I'm like, I started down this path of talking to people for free. And I was like, okay, God, what am I doing here? Because I got to make some money. So I went and got certified and all that to become this life coach. And the one thing I didn't do, which you did, is get the coach to help me, especially with the transition from what I was doing into this other part of my world that I was going to start in. And so those are like two big takeaways I want the listeners and the viewers to understand that when you're going to make a big decision, grab a mentor, grab a coach. It's so beneficial so that A, you create an exit strategy from whatever it is you're doing. And B, you start that next journey, that passion you want to do on the right path. Like you have some things set in stone. Because the other thing too, some of my clients that I work with are in the same spot you talked about, Jessica. Like they're working their 9-to-5 job. They're not happy, but they know I have to have this income. So they're creating their business on the side. And I'm not a business coach. So I have a business coaches that I refer them out to. I'm going to help you with the personal development side, the mindset of being like, this is how you're going to move to your passion. But you're going to also need to work with a business coach. But we talk about how to have a right structure out and integrity. Because the funny thing is, especially what you do and what I do, if I was to leave a company and then who knows, later on down the line, 6 degrees of separation, we hear oftentimes somebody that company I left is, oh my gosh, Jessica, it would be a great person to bring in here and coach us. And then they go, oh, we know who she was. She didn't leave us. Like you never know where your journey's going to lead you. So always leave with that integrity. I love that you also reminded of us of that. I think it's really powerful to keep that in mind. And so when you were on this journey, and like your book is right behind you, Finding Passion, oftentimes I think you said it too, like we have these different balls, like we juggle going, I think I want to do this. I think I want this part of it. To finding where to start, how were you able to, with your coach and our mentor, how were you able to decide, I'm going to go this path first? And let's be honest with everybody. How hard was it to make that transition?
It was really hard. That's why I hired a coach. Everybody around me, my support network was like, you'd be crazy to walk away from this lucrative career. You'd be nuts. And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm turning inside out here. I do not belong here. I'm not taking care of myself. The hours, the stress, the urgency of that work again and again. Everybody that I worked with, we all had these ebbs and flows of burnout, but they would be short lived. And I felt like at that time I was realizing this about myself. I was having a really long, extended, almost like a slow burnout in my entire career. And so my fear was, holy crap. First of all, what am I going to do next? Am I going to do this someplace else? But I may burn out, or I may like have just all the same symptoms all over again. Am I going to change? Am I going to start from scratch? Oh, I don't want to start from scratch. I'm in my mid 30s at the time. So the fear was, what if I make a change and this feeling that I have that I am still not reaching my potential, what if I still have that feeling? And I think when I worked with a coach, I got so much perspective out of it that really quickly I realized I'm not running away from a career that doesn't work for me. I'm running towards what I really want instead, because the integrity piece was huge for me. There was one particular incident, and I'll call it an incident, which was like we were having an innovation conference, and I'm using the air quotes, innovation conference. And my team in particular was we were in technology. So we were having a solution that was going to launch that weekend. So we were working Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I needed to stop work on Friday mid-afternoon and go to this innovation conference. And it was like at a Westin, and it was all nice and all drinks afterwards and all that stuff. It would probably be fun. But my integrity was like, I cannot go innovate when my team is working through a really hard deadline. So like for me, again, it was all about the people. And I remember getting told, no, you got to go, like up from your desk. Let's go. Come on, let's go right now. So I ended up going, and I spent the whole time on the phone with my team. And people were like, it was like a slow motion like movie or something. People were like, come on. And they were like inside the banquet hall or whatever with the round tables and the tablecloths. And they're like, come on in, Jess, come on. I was like a cat. I could not even think about walking through that threshold. I thought I would like combust or something. I couldn't do it. It meant so much to me to be the type of manager and leader that I wanted to be, and innovating when my team was working through something. It just wasn't congruent with me. And those were just some of the things that I was feeling. So for me, working with a coach, the hardest part was really trying to find a new way. I needed new tools to meet that moment. And I needed alignment, what I believed, what I valued, what I said, what I did. All of these pieces needed to align. And we ended up doing that. And one of the first steps once we got started was understanding what my personal values were. Because as a young professional in tech, I'm female in tech, I was often the only woman in the room. I didn't have a lot of role models in that environment. And worse, I probably worked extra hard to overcompensate for that by becoming the best corporate citizen I could. I wanted to live the company values. I wanted to, win the awards or whatever. I wanted to do that extracurricular stuff that companies do that I thought at the time was really important. And instead, working with a coach, we just simply started with some questions around what I really wanted, working through what are my personal values. And that unlocked the key to reconnect with myself.
I love that you talked about, there's a few things I want to unpack there is like your team was encouraging you to go, but you felt like still it was,
So my leaders were encouraging me to go.
yeah,
Where,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. And then when you got there, I love when you lead by that example, right? Because it's such you still went, but you had that tug, and that your coach pulled you back in and said, hey, I think it's important that we remember that, because also when going back to, especially like when you first left, first of all, if you're listening to us or watching us, when you make a big change, understand people are going to tell you, they're going to be the naysayers. They're going to tell you it's not going to work. They're not going to buy from you. Your family and friends do not buy from you. Stop thinking they're going to buy from you. They don't buy from you. So that's really important to keep that in mind, because that's, we go out, oh, my family and friends are going to buy. No, they're going to be the last ones to buy from you. I'm not saying they're never going to, but they're going to doubt you. And what, for me, and I want everybody to know too, and we'll get your perspective on this too, Jessica, is a lot of times those people that are trying to stop you from making this big move is because they want to make a big move and they've been afraid to make the move. So in their mind, I often say this, I'd say this to my kids too sometimes. It's their stuff, not your stuff. Like they don't want that, they're like, wow, she's really doing it. And something they've always wanted to do, but that fear again can hold you back. The fear can make you think it's not going to work. What if it did work? Great. And you know what? Here's the other thing. Let's be honest. Like what you said, you've got a coach, all the self-doubts and everything. Let's be honest. It may not work. But at the end of the day, if you don't try, you're always going to ask yourself, man, what if I'd done that? What if it worked? Right. And the thing is, when something doesn't go as planned, the big thing is to ask yourself, why? What could I have done different? What's the lesson that I can take from here? And that's like when I coach my clients, oftentimes I have business coaches that have me come in and coach their clients the personal development side, because they're like, I want to get them on the business side. I want to help them set up all the things your business coach helped you set up. I want to help them set that stuff up. But when it comes time to the mindset piece, to the things that they said that they want to be in their life, they struggle with that, because sometimes as business coaches, we have that imposter syndrome that creeps in. It's not imposter syndrome. It's you're doing it, but maybe you're doing it so well, you're afraid that people are looking at you going, she's not that, she's not, he's not that. And so that's where I like to come in and be like, no, let's talk about that feeling. Why do you feel that way? And we work through it. And the other thing that you did, and this is important, especially if you are listening to us or watching and you think you want to start a business, exactly what you did, Jessica. You talk about, what are my ethics? How do I want to align? How do I want to be perceived? Right? What are my values? Like all those things. Many times businesses don't do that piece of the pie. And then they find themselves working with people that they're like, oh, I would have never worked with that person or hired that person if I'd come in as a customer, because they don't align up to those values. Because the other part that also comes in there, I want everybody to know, is that you have to look at that when you are bringing in a customer. If that customer doesn't align up with your values and everything, especially, this is really important, if you're not having the income you want to come in, you don't still take somebody just because, oh, it's money in my bank account, because it's going to keep you. It's going to make a block when that person that lines up with you from coming into your circle. Because typically what happens is if they don't align with what your values are, your vision are, your ethics are for your business, they're going to be the ones that eat up a lot of your time, because you're going to have to do a lot more hand holding and a lot more giving them pacification and whatever. So don't bring somebody in just because you think, I don't have that dollar amount in my bank account, so I need to take them. No, it's okay to say no. It's like when I was doing health coaching, I would let my clients go. If they weren't staying on program, I'm like, I'm going to let you go. When you're ready to commit to yourself, come back and we'll talk. And they're like, why would you do that? I said, because you're my walking, talking billboard. And if you're out there not doing what you should be doing, you're not representing me. You're not representing how I feel about my business. And also I'd have people, even in my coaching world today, I'll have people come in and I know they've worked with other coaches, and I'll ask them, why me? And some people be, hey, bro, because you're so authentic. I see you on Facebook. I see you share your story. I see you share the good, the bad, the ugly of your life. So I know that you work through this stuff. I see you do that. But there will be that one that I'll be like, okay, you've worked with 2 or 3 coaches. Like at that point, I'm like, what's not working that you're not doing? And I'll get to the root cause of it. It's like accountability. The big thing for me is I'm going to hold you accountable. If you don't like accountability, we're not going to be a good fit together. And so I won't bring people on because of those reasons. And I think it's really important that we remind people that as you do find your passion, you're doing your passion work, don't let people come into your world that's going to be like, take that passion away from you. Because it's just like working a 9-to-5 job that you don't like anymore. It's going to be that. And then you're going to start questioning, oh, so I really want to do this business? You do. You just got to make sure you bring the right people into the world. So I love that you remind us of that, Jessica. I love that your coach help you find that. What are some
Yeah, and there's
thoughts on
a
that?
couple pieces to that too. Like the imposter piece, like I felt like an imposter if I had stayed knowing that I had this feeling brewing inside me. Like that would have been my imposter to stay. And the imposter feelings were really like a lot of self-doubt and a lot of second guessing myself. Again, like a career that looks good on paper. And I should be clear, like my support system around me was not dissuading me from leaving. They were just saying, I thought it looks really good. There's so many possibilities there. There's so many careers that you can have there. So they were just seeing like the benefits, but they weren't living it on the day to day where I was feeling those kind of like existential and like ethical dilemmas that I was feeling. So for me, like I really wanted to align I really wanted to change like how I was working with myself, change how I was talking to myself. And that's why self-discovery is so important because nobody could have told me that answer. Nobody could have said, "Okay, Jessica, come here. I've got it figured out. You're going to do this and this, and then you're going to feel great." It doesn't work that way. That's why we have aha moments. That's why we have like inner wisdom because we need to learn these things on our own. And when we do, we can't unlearn that. It's wow. And so a lot of my clients will say, I'm living in another dimension of myself because we're not just tackling my career crossroads situation. We're understanding kind of the other pieces of myself that are holding me back, how I'm holding myself back, how I'm talking to myself, how I'm holding myself to crazy standards or perfectionism. And the reason why this work is so important to me is because it makes an impact in all areas of your life. If you figure it out in your career, you absolutely can take that knowledge and apply it to other parts of your life too. And we often see that yin and yang of my personal life is going well, but my career is not, or my career is going well, but the other parts of my world are falling apart. And that's the balance. And so I think the work that you do, the work that we do, it's all about helping the whole person become who they really want to be and be self-solid in that.
I like it. You also remind us about the balance. And one of the things I love when I work with my clients too is, especially if I work with many that are professional women. I work with some that are I don't call it stay at home mom. I call it the CEO mom because they're running the business of a house. You're still running a business. You're making the house work. You're making sure the kids get where they need to go, all the pieces of the pie that have to go with that. But I love to tell them, like, nothing's about, it's like, okay, listen, I'm going to tell you, you can get balance as close as possible, but it's never going to be 100%. But if we can get you some harmony in life, like you said, the yin and yang, then it's okay. I'm happy. I can live this life that I'm living. I can do it happily. And I'm glad you actually started asking. My next question is going to be about helping your clients and how do they feel empowered, and you share that. It's so much. For me, I'm sure I'll have you share too. For me, it's so rewarding when one of my clients, like she first came. I do a retreat every year, so this year we have our ninth annual retreat in September. Here we're actually bringing it back to Tampa this year, but it's a PJ retreat, no makeup, in your pajamas or yoga pants, stuff for 4 days. And we work on self-care, self-development. And I remember when my client first came to one of my first retreats, she was at a stage of wanting to learn how to communicate with her spouse over things like she wanted this new dining room set. She was happy with the dining room table she had, but she wanted some changes. And she was like, I'm okay maybe with just even repost the chairs. So as I was talking to her husband's a lot like my husband, very much the money person. My husband's an auditor, a CPA, so he audits everything I do in my business. And her husband was very much wanting to make sure they're stable towards retirement. And so I was like, okay, we have to talk to his language. So create 3 different options that you want for this table and present it to him. And keeping in mind that this is keep the one you really want, but what are the 2 that you're willing to settle with? I said, oh, I didn't think about it that way. So we did that. So then when we talked about that, she said, he also wants me to buy a car, wants me to get me a car. Now, who doesn't want their spouse to buy them a new car? But she said, but he wants to get me this one particular car. And I think it was a Lexus. And she said, but I'm so happy he wants to buy me this car, but I don't feel safe in it. I said, okay, that's the love language. His love language is safety and money. So if he's going to buy you this car because she's short like I am, she's, I'll take a Lexus, but there's a better one. I feel safer. So she took both of those to the table to him, explained both of them. And with the table, I think she got the one her second choice. With the car, he was like, oh, like right away, like the safety. She's like, Pearl, you were so right. Like the safety piece. And I'm like, yeah, he doesn't want you to get in a car accident. So we have to, for me, it's so rewarding to watch my client. It's really, you have the voice, you and I both, even through our coaches and mentors, we have the tools. It's like, how do I navigate it and make it work? So I am like you said in your book, filling my passion, right? How do I make this work? And so for me, that's one of my most rewarding things at my client. What's something for you, Jessica, when you walk with your client, think about that one client, you're like, that was so amazing.
I think it's just, I'm really blessed that every day I get to watch these transformations. I get to work with introverts, perfectionists, and introverts, overthinkers, and introverts. I get to work with them every single day and I get to see how they start. I get to watch how the things that are holding them back in the beginning and watch those stories and excuses just start to melt away as they develop their own resiliency. It's like a personal power, personal resiliency. They come up with new strategies on their own. And so I'm guiding them, I'm helping them understand that or solidify that or put that into practice. And the experience that I see is just like how the weight just starts to lift off of them, like this pressure cooker that they're in. And through coaching, the pressure cooker starts to slow down or even stop. They start to become more confident on their own. And so all of these pieces are all intertwined. You could say that I'm a confident coach. You could say I'm a mindset coach. Yes, I'm that too, because all of those pieces are connected. And if you can understand that the way you make personal change, it's a process. It is not one step that gets you from here to the end. My gosh, if you did that, you would be just like those lottery winners. Have you ever heard the statistic about lottery winners, first time lottery winners? So it's some generic statistic and it's probably changed across time, but it goes something like 80% of lottery winners, first time lottery winners that win those multi jackpots, they become bankrupt within 2 years. Why? It's because they took one step. They had one, maybe years of buying one ticket, but they bought that one ticket and it created this one step to what they thought they wanted. But guess what? They didn't have the values, they didn't have the beliefs, they didn't have the actions, they didn't have the language that matched having that kind of money, having that kind of jackpot. So slowly but surely, they're not trying to self-sabotage themselves, but it unwinds. And that's exactly how coaching is. Personal change is a process. A lot of people talk about making habits in 21 days and all that jazz. Sure, you can make a habit in 21 days, but to make the habit last, that's the part as a coach I really pride myself in. And I think it's something that I do really well as I help my clients make the change that they want to last, make sure it's maintained, make sure it's integrated. You will continue to have setbacks with your changes and with your habits, but it's what we do at those moments is how can we learn through that friction? What is that telling us? How can we make it better and keep moving forward? And suddenly we have a positive feedback loop that helps us continuously improve.
That is so true. It's a great example. I never heard that statistic, and it makes total sense too when you go back and think about it. And you're exactly right because now that same client, now we just went to lunch the other day. She's not a client anymore. She still comes to my retreats. She loves my retreats. We went to lunch the other day. And she goes, I had this situation came up, and I just was so happy that I had the tools in my toolbox that you taught me of understanding the language of what I'm hearing. How does it affect me? How do I respond? And so I'm like, that's what I want to be here for. That's my impact. That when I leave this world, that's the legacy I want to leave. Is like, I taught you how to say yes to yourself, how to have your voice, but also not just have your voice, but be respectful that listen to the other voice too. And how do you carry that through your life? Because we forget to do that sometimes. And especially for me, like I'm an overcoming people pleaser. And for me, it's generational. My granny led it to my mom and then to me. When it got to me, it was like, oh, yeah, I want to do it all, but I have this. And when it took me to my oldest was a senior in high school to be like, I got to stop doing for everybody else because I'm in my 40s and I'm not happy. So I was like, I had to make a change. And now I tell everybody, if everybody's watched the show before, listened before, we have two amazing boys. I've been with my husband for 40 years almost. And we lost our oldest one almost 3 years ago this July. But the best memory I can have when 2 days before he passes, he's like, Mom, he was here in the house in the garage. We throw you a bottle of water. I threw that bottle of water and he's, man, now we figured out who the heck you are, but you can also throw something because I couldn't throw a football. But that was like that validation. And for whatever reason, God gave it to me 2 days before it passed. It's when I carry and say, I need to keep doing this work because it makes a difference. It's seen, even if it's just seen by my kids, it's seen. I carry that on. So I'm so glad we had this conversation. Oh my gosh, we could go on forever about all this, but I want everybody to get to find out how they can reach you. So show everybody how they reach you. And if you're driving, it's going to be on the show notes. And I also know you have a freebie. So go ahead and share your freebie with everybody too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find my freebie. So my website is my name, Jessica Manca, MANCA.com. And the freebie is at Jessica Manca/Pearl, jessicamanca.com/Pearl. So to just keep it simple. And there you can find, I've created an excerpt from my book, which is an expanded version of 21 essential questions that you can ask about if you are at the career crossroads to just get that ball rolling. We struggle with asking ourselves the difficult questions. And that's precisely why I created that book. I created the book that I wish I'd had, knowing what I know about personal values, knowing what I know about being somebody who doesn't have, at the time, not a lot of mentors and such that were walking through what I was walking through as I was becoming a mom. Around that same time, I made that shift. And now my children are almost 16 and 10, almost 10. It's a while ago, but we have a hard time asking ourselves the difficult questions. And if my worksheet can help you find that confidence and just give you that spark to understand your career crossroads and understand what you're really about. And I think one thing I'll say, going back to the personal values, is that if you are trying to figure out what you want in your life, you need to understand what's important to you, or else that answer will never be truly satisfied. You could want a lot of things, but what's the most important one that you have? Life is way too short to be wasting time in a role or a career that you're suffering through. So check out my freebie, jessicamanca.com/Pearl, and you can find it there. And thank you so much, Pearl, for having me today. It's been amazing to talk to you.
Yeah, we're not done. We still have to do our cards, but I want to piggyback on what you said too about what is your passion. One of the big things I do with my clients is when I coach and I start working with my clients, we do their joy list. I want them to create what brings you joy. And they're like, oh, I'm like, I want 10 of them. Oh, I can give it to you. No problem. I'll do it right now. I'm like, no, it's going to take you probably 6 weeks to put together because you're going to write it down. I'm going to ask why about that brings you joy. And then what about that brings you joy? Like just for one thing, right? We're going to really break it down to make sure that truly is something that brings you joy or you're just thinking it brings you joy. And so one of the things I tell all my clients too is if tomorrow does not come, if for whatever reason we don't get to have Jessica in our world tomorrow, and all your family and friends can say is the 10 something, at least 10 people in the room can say one thing they saw you do for yourself. And if 10 people can't say, then we got to figure out what your passion is because you want people to be able to say you're more than your title. You want people to be able to say, oh my gosh, she said yes because she sat in a front porch swing. She said yes because she made time to spend time with her kids. Spending time with herself is not selfish, but spending, and you can do it with your kids, but also like I make time to do staycations. I can say this now because it will already have happened. So when this gets released, I will have just come back from surprising a dear friend of mine that I haven't seen probably in 6 years, that where I'm going to go surprise her daughter and I and her husband are working behind the scenes on making it happen. Do things like that because that brings you joy and it's not just about a title that I'm wearing. So I'm glad you reminded us that too, the passion piece of it, because it's so important. And so we'll put everything in the show notes to reach Jessica, but we're going to do our cards. So if you're new to my world, we have these cards. My friend Carol Gill and Diane Allen, they create these cards. They're called Better Question, Better Life. And so there's 77 cards here. You can pull one out every day and journal on it, take a picture on your phone, whatever that is for you. But they're really great cards. So I want to shuffle them. You tell Linda stop, Jessica. We'll have you answer the card. So here we go. Tell Linda stop.
Stop.
Okay. All right. So your question says, what am I creating? What are you creating right now, Jessica?
Ooh, I love that question. I'm helping create a world where we no longer rely on outside resources and books and courses and programs to figure out how to live. That we have the knowledge and kind of the life 101 skills that teach us how to listen to ourselves, how to work with ourselves, our body, our mind, our spirit. We have the tools to be empowered and we live an empowered life. And I think that's what I'm building.
That is so powerful. I love to because we forget we have all that in us. We think we got to go get the next book. We think we got to go do the next course. And even as business owners, I had that habit with, again, we talked about this. You're going to start a business, get a coach right away because I was such a squirrel when I started my business, not having a business coach. I was like all over the place. And now that I'm really in tune, it feels so rewarding. And so just, I love that you're creating that. You have it within you. You just got to tap into it and listen to it. I think it's
Yeah, and I think too, a coach helps you figure things out. They help you call out your inconsistencies, like when you say one thing and do another. Like they have this outside perspective, and that's exactly what I needed when I was at the crossroads. So they have an outside perspective. They're able to offer you that without any attachment. They're not your mom or your sis or your cousin or whatever. They're able to offer you that. But then also they can work with you. And I think of coaching as a partnership. So it's side by side, shoulder to shoulder. What do you see, client? What's possible here now? And we work on figuring things out and achieving your goals in less time, but also following through on those goals for that really important maintenance and integration piece so that the goals last. There's no greater testimonial or success story that I can have is when a client says that, hey, the work that we did a few years ago, I'm still using it to this day. That's what I'm talking about.
I love that. That's so 100% true. It's 100% true. I'm glad you reminded. And that's a great way for us to close out the show, too. So thank you, Jessica, for being on the show with us today. I want to remind everybody that you come into this world, you got some things we have to do. We've been talking about today. Find your passion. What are your goals? What do you want to do with your life? Are you really happy where you're at? And those are things that when you start working at, you start opening up your shell, you're going to find your inner pearl of greatness. And you're going to find your inner Shiro. So I hope today you take some little nuggets, go find your passion, and start doing some things that you love to do because you deserve it. Have a great day. All right. So what a great episode we just had with Jessica. Oh my gosh. Like the biggest thing I take away is truly what her book says, finding your passion. What is your passion? Are you living your life that is your passion? And if you're not, how do we get you there? And like Jessica said, she's got the freebie. Make sure you go get it in the show notes. But if you're struggling with just figuring out where you want to go with your life, how to create harmony in your life, we have our Keep It Simple Shiro program. I would love to be part of that. It's so much fun. It's really identifying your joy. It's stopping the midnight wake up routines. It's learning to set boundaries and understanding that no is a complete sentence and you can say it like you won $1 million. So if you're wanting more information on that, just follow the links below and let's get you on a one-on-one call with me. And it's totally free, and let's see where we can help you keep it simple, Shiro.
Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my